I've always hated my sister Olivia. I don't understand why. Even though we're twins, she's popular, gets good grades, and is the most well-rounded school star, while I'm fat, not smart, and have a withdrawn personality. My only friend hung out with me only because she hated Olivia as much as I did. Nobody at school believed I was Olivia's twin sister. People would often mock me, laughing exaggeratedly. "Oh my God, is Olivia that Olivia your sister?" they'd say. "You two are like night and day. Why is your sister so amazing, and you're so dumb? Did your genes mutate in the womb?" Of course, they only dared say these things in front of me. If Olivia heard them, she'd stare at them expressionlessly until they apologized to me. But if it weren't for her, I wouldn't have to deal with any of this. So every day, I'd silently pray that Olivia had never existed. I didn't always hate Olivia. When we were little, for a long time, I was proud of her. She was always the most popular person in school, from kindergarten on. I'd never seen anyone more beautiful than her. Even lost in a crowd, she stood out like God had played favorites and given her an extra filter. Not to mention her grades, which were off the charts. In elementary school, when I was still struggling to memorize multiplication tables, she was already solving advanced math problems using algebra. Twins usually don't call the older one big sister when they're young, but the little kid me was most excited to point to Olivia standing on various award podiums and brag to my friends. "See? That's my sister." They would look at me with envy, jealous that I had such an amazing, talented sister. Until one day a little kid asked me, seriously and confusedly, "Chloe, why is your sister so amazing, and you're so ordinary?" Ordinary. That was the first time I heard that word. Before that, I'd never thought I was bad. Maybe it was because Mom often told me, "Chloe, kids like you are normal. Your sister's development is, well, exceptionally abnormal. So don't compare yourself to her." In Mom's heart, you and Olivia are equally wonderful, okay? I'd always nod obediently, knowing that I wasn't bad. It was just that Olivia was that good. But for the first time, someone asked me, "Why are you so ordinary?" Why, when we grew up together in the same womb, with Olivia only being born 11 minutes and 8 seconds before me, why was she so exceptionally talented? Of course, that thought was fleeting. When Olivia used her prize money to buy me cake, I'd forget all about it, rushing over to hug her arm and say, "Olivia, you're the best." Olivia would turn her head to look at me, her face, sculpted like fine jade, impassive. Even at a young age, she had a distant, aloof demeanor. She'd ignore my attempts at being cute and just say flatly, "You can eat after you finish the practice problems I gave you." I'd wail dramatically. In terms of emotional maturity, Olivia and I weren't 11 minutes and 8 seconds apart, but more like 11 years and 8 months. Of course, Olivia wasn't completely perfect. I don't know if it's a common trait among geniuses, but she seemed to lack emotion compared to ordinary people. Later, when I watched Sherlock Holmes, I often saw a shadow of Olivia in that genius named Sherlock. Except she was even more taciturn. Even when Olivia and I were infants, she already showed traits different from typical babies. Mom said she rarely cried. Her eyes, dark and deep, would always be wide open, quietly observing her surroundings. Occasionally, if my crying bothered her, she'd frown and put her hand over my mouth. Later, when she learned to talk and walk, during that awkward, annoying age where kids are just little terrors, she would always sit quietly, playing with educational toys and quickly figuring out their patterns. Her premature intelligence worried Mom. Although everyone around us would look at Olivia and tell Mom how lucky she was, that this child seemed extraordinary and destined for great things, Mom would often look at Olivia with a frown. This worry peaked when Olivia and I were 6. That year, I found a little sparrow with a broken wing. I held it in my hands and brought it home, asking Mom to save it. The next day, Olivia dissected the sparrow. It was carefully cut open down the middle of its abdomen, its heart, lungs, and kidneys neatly arranged to one side. Olivia looked up at Mom's barely suppressed gasp of surprise and my screams. She even had blood-stained plastic gloves on her hands. She genuinely didn't understand the horror on Mom's face and mine. She just explained very seriously, "I read in a book that even though a sparrow is small, it has all the internal organs. I just wanted to check. It's true." I was so scared I burst into tears and ran a fever that night. Because of that, I was actually scared of Olivia for a while. Mom took Olivia to see a doctor, but thankfully Olivia wasn't a sociopath. She just had mild Asperger's syndrome. By 3rd or 4th grade, there were no signs of the syndrome in Olivia. She interacted normally with other kids and participated in group activities. Mom thought Olivia was cured, but I felt it was because Olivia had learned how to interact with people through observation and study. She couldn't truly feel others' emotions, and she didn't have any feelings for anything, except for me. Only with me would Olivia show emotions that didn't fit the profile of high-functioning autism. She seemed to really like me. Even though I came to hate her so much later, my emotionally detached, genius twin sister seemed to have given her only bit of normal human emotion to me. Olivia didn't have many hobbies. She didn't like sweets, didn't like pretty new clothes, didn't like amusement parks, didn't like traveling, didn't like watching new TV shows every day. She was always immersed in books. It wasn't necessarily because she loved reading. It was because she found the things in books more interesting than real people and events. The reason I say she seemed to like me is because she would use her prize money to buy me desserts, buy me the dresses I liked, and even get me limited edition posters of celebrities whose names she probably didn't even know. She knew all my preferences and did her best to indulge them. After I started distancing myself from her in middle school, she would just quietly look at me with a furrowed brow. I knew she was observing me, trying to understand why I was pulling away. At first, it was just the awkwardness of puberty. As time passed, the gap between Olivia and me widened. She became more and more beautiful, her delicate features refined and ethereal, her body shooting up tall like a sprouting plant, like a princess from a manga. I don't know if it was an issue of nutrient distribution in the womb for twins. I was weaker than Olivia when we were little. Back then, the difference between us wasn't that big, at least outwardly. I was also innocent and cute. But in 6th grade, when kids my age started developing, I seemed to be on 0.5x speed. Not only was I slow to grow, but I also started gaining weight sideways. Even though I tried to control my diet, it felt like I'd gain weight just by drinking water, making me sensitive and self-conscious. Olivia and I weren't in the same class. The thing my homeroom teacher in my class liked to say most was, "Chloe, can't you learn from your sister?" I tell myself that maybe every teacher who said this meant well, hoping I'd be more ambitious, that their intentions were good. But standing on the stage, looking down at me from above, their gaze always held a fleeting hint of regret and annoyance, as if saying, "Why wasn't Olivia assigned to my class?" Every time this happened, the entire class would turn around to look at me, their eyes full of pity, understanding, and commiseration. I'd try to shrink myself smaller and smaller, wanting to disappear under my desk to block out all those stares, but it was useless. That look followed me everywhere. Even though I stopped bragging about Olivia and then stopped mentioning her altogether, whenever Olivia was shining and excelling on the award podium, I could always hear the quiet whispers around me pointing. "That's Chloe, Olivia's twin sister. Weird, they're twins, but she looks nothing like her. Did she just say she and Olivia are twins? I heard fraternal twins can be completely different. Oh my God, the difference between her and Olivia is like a fairy and an ugly duckling." Of course, I knew these discussions were just curiosity, not malice. The malice of children is always hidden beneath a veil of innocence. Then there was Mom's increasingly doting attitude towards me at home. Olivia and I don't have a dad. He died saving someone from drowning before we were born. So Mom raised us both alone. She was a good mother, wanting to avoid favoritism caused by the huge gap between her two children. She tried her best to praise me from every angle, hoping to prevent my growing imbalance and self-consciousness. Whenever I thought about this, I'd try hard to hide my self-consciousness and jealousy, pretending everything was fine when talking and interacting with Olivia, asking her questions, acting like a naive, clingy little sister, making my distance from her seem less obvious. Maybe my emotions were just erratic, which is why Olivia would often frown when I acted strange, as if she couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, as if I were the hardest problem she'd ever encountered. It made sense that she didn't understand. Human emotions are ever-changing, complex even to the person feeling them, let alone Olivia, who had only a rudimentary grasp of emotions. She wouldn't hear the things I heard. Everyone around her looked at her with admiration and praise. Even though she didn't care about these things, she wouldn't experience what I did. I tried to give myself pep talks. I told myself there were 2 things you absolutely must not do in a long life. First, never feel sorry for yourself, and second, never be jealous. Jealousy is the only one of the 7 deadly sins that has no fun in it. Until we started high school together, and Olivia gave the freshman representative speech on stage. On the very first day of school, She became famous throughout the entire grade. Good grades, good looks, and on top of that, she looked so refined. After the orientation ceremony, I went back to my classroom. She had already been unanimously voted the new grade school star. People in the class were buzzing. What's the name of the girl who just gave the freshman speech? Why is she so pretty? I sat by the wall, silent, trying to remove myself from the topic. But it was useless. Riverwood is a small town, and there were many familiar faces among the freshmen. From the whispers and gossip involving Olivia, twins, and so on, I saw quite a few curious eyes glancing back in my direction, invariably accompanied by visible disappointment and shock, as if to say, she's the twin sister of Olivia, the school star and top student? Did her genes mutate? I had already learned to ignore those stares. Olivia and I weren't in the same class. After school, as I was packing my backpack, I heard gasps and exclamations from my classroom. The boys' voices particularly loud. I looked up and out the window and saw Olivia standing by the classroom building door, waiting for me. It was no surprise. Even though I had seen that face every day since birth, I still had to admit, every time I saw Olivia unexpectedly, I'd instinctively gasp in admiration. How could anyone be so favored by the Creator? Olivia stood by the door, expressionless, used to ignoring the awestruck stares. She was just waiting for me. We had always walked to and from school together since we were little, but now I suddenly wished she hadn't shown up outside my classroom. I was silent the entire way home. Olivia turned her head, her clear, clean eyes reflecting my small figure. Did someone bully you? Her expression was calm, her tone flat, as if it were just a casual question. But I knew she was serious. If I said a name out loud, within 3 days, I knew for a fact that person would suddenly have terrible luck. That was based on my experience. Before elementary school, she hadn't yet become famous for her grades. Relatives would often gossip to Mom, asking if Olivia had autism, saying she was too cold and withdrawn, that her emotions weren't stable like a child's, that she was too frightening. But even then she would protect me. The kids at kindergarten would often steal my things. Because I was small and weak, I couldn't fight back or cry and tell the teacher like other kids. They'd call me a sickly kid, and push me to grab my stuff. Every time that happened, Olivia would just stare at the kids bullying me with her dark, deep eyes. Afterward, without fail, those kids would find bugs in their backpacks, or mud and sand in their water bottles and lunchboxes, or they'd trip over something and fall flat on their backs while walking, or they'd fall off the monkey bars or something else. I managed a weak smile at Olivia and said softly, I don't know anyone in my new class. It's just the beginning of the school year, maybe I'm still adjusting. Olivia looked at me thoughtfully but didn't say anything. The next day, I heard that my homeroom teacher and the honors class homeroom teacher were arguing because Olivia had submitted a transfer request, stating she wanted to be in the same class as her sister. The honors class homeroom teacher naturally disagreed. Olivia was the most promising student in the new cohort. My homeroom teacher, on the other hand, was overjoyed. The two teachers argued fiercely over Olivia. While they were arguing, the principal happened to walk by and asked in surprise what was going on. After hearing the explanation, he just smiled. I thought this might be the highlight of my entire high school life, because the principal himself came over and asked me if I wanted to transfer to the honors class to be with Olivia, or if I wanted my sister to transfer to my class. In my brief academic career up to that point, I had never been given such high regard, of course, only because of Olivia's halo. I wasn't flattered. I wanted to scream, to let out a colossal roar in my heart. But I was too nervous. All eyes were on me, and I felt suffocated. I opened my mouth but couldn't say a word. Finally, the principal decided I should transfer to the honors class. Powerless to resist, I packed my things. As I stepped into the honors class, I went through that invisible bullying all over again. Looks of surprise, pity, or pure entertainment were all directed at me. Some people even gasped dramatically, their eyes darting back and forth between me and Olivia, then whispering and gossiping with their classmates, mouths wide open. All this attention, sparked by Olivia, was like kindling, setting me ablaze, slowly roasting me little by little. It wouldn't offer immediate relief. Instead, it was a slow burn, like boiling a frog slowly, eroding my patience bit by bit. The agonizing, unbearable pain and hate, inescapable, seeped from my body into my bones, until it finally exploded. The homeroom teacher asked me to introduce myself, but I completely ignored him. To everyone's astonished stares, I walked from the front of the class to the very back, by the window, and sat down with a defiant slump of my backpack. All eyes then shifted back to Olivia in surprise. The homeroom teacher was taken aback, but didn't say anything. Later, after class, Olivia came over to ask me to eat lunch together. I looked at her with a blank expression and said coldly, "I don't want to eat with you." She paused but didn't ask why. She just went back to her seat and continued reading. I sat alone in the back by the window, looking at her slender back. I turned away, deciding that out of sight was out of mind. The classroom was empty. A little while later, Olivia came over again. "Lunch." Her tone was normal and calm, as if she didn't notice I was angry, as if the point of my earlier statement, "I don't want to eat with you," wasn't that I didn't want to eat with her, but that I wasn't hungry when she asked. So she waited a bit and came back to ask, "You weren't hungry just now, are you hungry now? Want to go eat?" If I still said I didn't want to go, she would just come back and ask again later. Getting angry at Olivia was like punching cotton. I really didn't want to seem overly dramatic, but weren't teenage hormones just this unstable? I held back, and finally couldn't anymore. I stood up and yelled, "What do you want? Can you stop making decisions for me? I don't want to be in the same class as you. So many people are fawning over you, are you enjoying it? So many people use me to make you look better, more amazing, are you proud of that?" These words were completely out of line, spoken in anger. Olivia never felt proud or smug about the external admiration and comparisons. Even without me as a contrast, she was brilliantly outstanding. That was an objective fact. Only I, a dark, damp, jealous sewer rat compared to my twin sister, would project such thoughts onto her. If twins had telepathic connection, I wondered if Olivia could sense the malicious thoughts I couldn't control on countless sleepless nights. What if Olivia suddenly became ugly? What if Olivia suddenly became stupid? What if Olivia suddenly gained a lot of weight? What if I never existed? What if I never had this sister? What if I were Olivia? How vicious. Harboring such terrible curses against the closest person to me. If she knew what I was thinking, with her limited emotions, how would she see me, her sister? She had never done anything to hurt me. I hated her simply because she was Yosheu. Her excellence made me jealous, and that jealousy gnawed at me day and night, accumulating until my ill will towards her could no longer be hidden. I glared at her chest, which was rising and falling rapidly with anger and excitement. Deep in my mind, a sense of twisted pleasure surfaced. I even felt a strange anticipation of how Olivia would react. Shock, surprise, sadness, anger, disappointment. But Olivia lowered her gaze. I couldn't see her expression. She didn't say anything. Olivia and I fell into a cold war. Of course, it was entirely one-sided on my part. Olivia treated me as she always had. I ate alone, sat in the back alone, often zoned out, occasionally listened to lectures, and went home alone. Sometimes, Olivia would wait for me at the intersection near home, and we'd enter the house one after the other. She even knew how to avoid worrying Mom. Besides wanting everyone to treat me like I was invisible, I surprisingly received invitations to friendship. Quite a few girls in the class started actively approaching me to chat, inviting me to lunch, and talking to me after class. When did this start? After class, the windows along the corridor of our classroom were often packed with boys from other classes. Even older guys came by. She received gifts and love letters every day. Eventually, our homeroom teacher had to patrol the corridor after class frequently to chase away the boys. I saw many girls in the class subtly looking at Olivia, and then whispering to each other. The looks in their eyes were emotions I was all too familiar with. Intense envy, annoyance, disdain, feigned indifference, trying hard to act like they didn't care. While they spoke of admiring and idolizing Olivia, it was as if they had magnifying glasses in their eyes, trying to find flaws or imperfections in her. Olivia wasn't good at or interested in maintaining social relationships. She wouldn't engage in the girls' gossip, and she treated the boys who confessed or flirted like garbage. Because of this, many boys became frustrated and defensive. If they couldn't have her, they wanted to destroy her, or pull her down from her pedestal, make her someone attainable. That was the malice ingrained in most people. It started with girls showing kindness towards me, talking to me, inviting me to eat, bringing me snacks, and then pulling me into their friend group. I met their friends, and I seemed to suddenly become popular. Honestly, at first, I was a little overwhelmed by this sudden friendliness. especially when I saw Olivia seemingly isolated by a silent, unspoken agreement. The sense of superiority I had never felt with Olivia before welled up inside me. Every time we had to team up in PE class, Olivia was left alone. The PE teacher stood at the front, looking at Olivia, standing alone by the side, watching the clusters of girls standing together. Then they would ask, "Is there anyone who doesn't have a partner? Which student is willing to team up with her?" The air instantly went silent. Everyone stood still, a collective silence. Nobody had planned it beforehand. The isolation had become a natural, spontaneous group action. Olivia stood there calmly, enduring the scrutiny, which ranged from pity to mockery. Some people's expressions grew excited, watching Olivia's reaction as if it were a show. In that moment, the collective bullies were on top, acting as if they had leverage over Olivia. They hoped this unreachable flower would bow down to their group power. I stood among the crowd, watching Olivia, and emotionally, I felt like I should be happy. But I couldn't ignore the sudden, uncontrollable sharp pang and hollow feeling deep beneath the smile I forced onto my lips. I looked at Olivia, wondering if she would look at me. If she looked at me, even a glance seeking help, what would I do? I would probably rush to her side without hesitation. I wasn't sure. Olivia didn't give me the chance. She didn't look towards me at all. She wasn't embarrassed, nor did she show the awkwardness or plead for group acceptance that they expected. She simply looked at the PE teacher with composure and calmly asked, "Since no one is willing to team up with me, can I go back to the classroom building to read?" After that, Olivia was excused from all future PE classes. It was a privilege granted by the homeroom teacher. During a break on the sports field, a girl casually started the first topic. "Chloe, it must be tough having a sister like that." Her tone was light, like typical idle chatter between friends. The next second, everyone's eyes turned to me simultaneously. I felt the hidden anticipation in their gaze. I looked at the person who asked me this, Jessica. She was also pretty, but unlike Olivia, she was skilled at navigating social situations. It had only been less than 2 months since school started, and she had already subtly become a leader among the girls' cliques. She was jealous of Olivia, or perhaps hated her, an emotion I was all too familiar with. Without Olivia, she would probably have been the one who shone brightest and stood out the most. She was very capable, but she had met Olivia. Of course, if you could score people on cunning, she would score at least 195 points higher than Olivia. I understood their reason for befriending me. It was probably for this moment when I would let my guard down, to use this casually phrased, leading question to get me to voice my dissatisfaction with Olivia, and perhaps reveal some of Olivia's private information or flaws along the way. I thought, no matter what I said, by the time school ended this afternoon, the bad things about Olivia that came from my mouth would be exaggerated and become the topic of everyone's private gossip. Thinking about this, I suddenly laughed. Meeting their expectant eyes, I said, "Yeah, it's pretty tough. My sister has been amazing and perfect since we were kids, making me look like garbage. I'm so jealous of her." Jessica's face froze for a second, then she smiled, kind and gentle. "Is Olivia like that at home too? Does she have any weird quirks?" She smiled again as she spoke, her face showing just the right amount of curiosity and innocence, as if it were just friendly gossip, purely curious. "Don't worry, we won't tell anyone." I smiled. I could feel my expression turning cold, little by little. I said, "No. What are you trying to get me to say by pushing like this? Do you want me to make something up so you can slander and spread rumors?" Everyone's faces looked uncomfortable. Just then, the bell for the end of class rang, and everyone tacitly changed the subject. But as we walked back to the classroom building, they didn't link arms with me or surround me in the middle like before. Instead, they intentionally or unintentionally left me behind, keeping a small distance, the isolation so blatant. I scoffed inwardly at this familiar tactic. My popularity was short-lived, and I was even implicitly becoming the second person to be collectively isolated. They couldn't get to Olivia, but handling me was a piece of cake. I was too lazy to try and fit in again, but soon they stopped bothering with me anyway. That's because our school got a transfer student. This transfer student caused a huge sensation at our school even before he arrived. Because that time was approaching winter break, suddenly, one vehicle after another entered our school. The logos on the trucks were from a well-known electronics company, and the trucks were loaded with the latest high-end air conditioning units. We heard that all the classrooms in the school were getting new air conditioning, and we thought the stingy school had finally had a change of heart. It wasn't until the school teachers vaguely hinted that a transfer student was coming to our school, and these air conditioning units were a donation from their family, along with large amounts of chemistry lab equipment. We were astonished, trying to calculate how much all of this cost, and could only conclude that this transfer student's family must be incredibly wealthy. So during that time, besides the joy of the upcoming break, everyone was talking about who this mysterious transfer student was, coming in the new semester with such lavish spending, and which class they would be in. Until school started. On the first day of school, the homeroom teacher walked in, cheerfully tapped the desk, and said, "Quiet down, everyone. Let me introduce a new transfer student." Everyone looked up in unison. The moment the door opened, the entire classroom fell into a deathly silence. The boy who walked in had slightly long black hair. His black t-shirt had a large skull printed on it, and his pants weren't the standard school uniform pants but black jeans. Most noticeable were the 4 or 5 piercings in his right ear, with silver-spiked earrings glinting in the sunlight. "Hi everyone, my name is Dylan." His voice was low, with a casual air, and his eyes swept over the class with a hint of disdain, as if none of it mattered to him. The homeroom teacher's smile was a little stiff. Clearly, he wasn't pleased with the new student's attire, but thinking of the expensive air conditioning and lab equipment, he forced himself to say, "Dylan, why don't you find a seat?" Dylan scanned the classroom, his gaze lingering on Olivia for a few seconds. Olivia was focused on her textbook, the sunlight from the window falling on the side of her face. Her concentrated expression made her look particularly lovely. Dylan's lips curved into an intrigued smile, and he walked directly to an empty seat in the back row. After class, the whole school was buzzing. "Oh my God, that transfer student is so hot. He looks rebellious, but it's so cool. I heard his family is super rich, no wonder he dares to dress like that at school." Girls clustered together, discussing Dylan, their eyes sparkling with excitement. Even Jessica was now completely focused on the new boy. I noticed that whenever Dylan appeared in the corridor or on the sports field, his eyes would involuntarily search for Olivia. Olivia seemed completely unaware of this. She remained immersed in her studies or sat quietly reading at her desk during breaks. Once, I saw Dylan deliberately walk up to Olivia and pretend to accidentally knock the pen off her desk. "Excuse me," he said, bending down to pick up her pen, taking the opportunity to talk to her. Olivia looked up, said a polite thank you, and went back to reading her book. Her calm reaction clearly surprised Dylan. He probably hadn't expected a girl to be so indifferent to him, but this seemed to pique his interest even more. Over the next few days, Dylan started trying all sorts of ways to approach Olivia. He would intentionally create small disturbances on the paths Olivia usually took, trying to get her attention. But Olivia remained calm, as if she hadn't noticed the new boy's special interest in her at all. Other girls, including me, were deeply attracted to Dylan's presence. I found myself paying attention to his every move. The way he casually skipped class, the privilege of openly sleeping in class without teachers daring to say anything, the occasional glimpse of his mischievous smile. It all made my heart race. I wasn't the only one. Jessica and the others also started trying to get close to Dylan, but he treated all the girls with an air of indifference, except for Olivia. One day after school, I saw Dylan stop Olivia on her way. "Olivia, why are you always alone?" he asked, with a hint of challenge in his tone. Olivia looked at him calmly. "I'm used to it." "Doesn't that get boring?" Dylan stepped closer. "Want to grab a bite with me?" Olivia shook her head. "Thanks, I need to go home. My sister is waiting for me." With that, she walked around Dylan and left. I hid around the corner, watching it all unfold, feeling conflicted. On one hand, I felt a touch of satisfaction at Olivia's coldness. On the other hand, I was worried about her because the determined look in Dylan's eyes was unsettling. What surprised me most was that when I went back to the classroom to get my backpack, I found Dylan still sitting at his desk, looking outside thoughtfully. "Is she always like that?" he suddenly asked me. I was startled, realizing he was asking about Olivia. "What? Your sister, is she always so detached?" Hearing the words "your sister" brought a rush of complex emotions. "She's not detached." I heard myself defending Olivia. She just focuses on what's important to her." Dylan turned his head to look at me, a flicker of interest in his eyes. "And what's important to her?" I was silent for a moment, then said, "Studying, and me." I was surprised myself after saying that, but it was the truth. No matter what happened, Olivia always put me first. Just like today, she refused Dylan's invitation, saying she needed to find me. Dylan nodded thoughtfully, then stood up and left the classroom. From that day on, I noticed Dylan's strategy changed. He no longer directly approached Olivia but started observing her, studying her habits and preferences. What made me even more uneasy was that he started showing interest in me. Not romantic interest, but seeing me as a way to understand Olivia. "You guys grew up together, right?" he asked me once, suddenly sitting next to me. "Yes. Does she have any special hobbies? What kind of books does she like?" I started to realize he was using me to learn about Olivia. This created a strange conflict within me. Part of me wanted to help him because I was attracted to him, and part of me wanted to stop him because I was attracted to him. While I was hesitating, rumors about Dylan started circulating around the school. Some said he was expelled from his previous school for fighting, some said his family had ties to organized crime, and some even claimed he had once caused a girl to jump off a building for him. Regardless of whether these rumors were true or not, I felt he looked like the kind of bad guy in a teen movie who'd climb through your window at night. And he actually was. In less than a month, he found a few other members who dressed similarly stylishly and formed a band. He insisted I bring Olivia to their show. I just said I couldn't guarantee she'd come and told him about the guy Olivia had made cry after he confessed to her. But Dylan suddenly leaned closer, a bold smile on his face, and said, "What kind of losers were those? You're comparing them to me?" I shook my head awkwardly, only noticing how long his eyelashes were. My heart raced, and at the same time, I felt ashamed of my reaction. "The show is this Friday night," he straightened up, resuming his casual tone. "Remember to bring her." I nodded, but in my heart I knew Olivia wouldn't go. She never participated in events like that, especially at night. Sure enough, when I brought it up at home, Olivia refused without even looking up. "I'm not going, and neither are you." "Why?" I was a little defiant. "Do you think that Dylan is a good person?" Olivia finally put down her pen and looked at me seriously. "Don't get too close to him." A wave of rebellious emotion surged within me. "You don't even know him." "I don't need to know him." Olivia's voice was soft but held an undeniable firmness. "The way he looks at you, it's not good." I froze. Olivia had always been perceptive, but I hadn't expected her to say that about Dylan. "He's not looking at me," I said softly. "He likes you." Olivia didn't react at all. "That's even worse. Some people you just can't mess with, understand?" But I was 17, at the age most easily drawn to danger. The more Olivia tried to stop me, the more curious I became. That Friday, I lied to Olivia and said I was going to the library with a classmate to study. Then I secretly snuck off to the venue where Dylan's band was playing. It was packed with students from our school, and some young people who looked like college students. The air smelled of alcohol and youthful excitement. Dylan wore a black leather jacket, his hair deliberately messy, looking particularly captivating in the dim light. His eyes scanned the crowd, searching for something. When he spotted me sitting alone in the corner, he frowned in clear disappointment. But the show started anyway. Dylan really did have talent. His voice was low and magnetic, and the songs were melancholic but had a wild beauty. Even people who weren't interested in the band at first started moving closer to the stage. After the show, Dylan walked directly to my table. "She didn't come?" he asked, his tone sounding annoyed. I shook my head. "I told you I couldn't guarantee it." Dylan sat down across from me and ordered 2 drinks. "I'm not in a hurry." "She doesn't like places like this." I watched the bartender shaking the cocktail shaker, my heart beating a little faster. I'd never had alcohol before. "And she might think you're not a good person." Hearing this, Dylan didn't get angry. Instead, he laughed and pushed a drink towards me. "Has she ever had a drink?" My face stiffened. I was annoyed that he kept talking about Olivia, but what right did I have to be angry? If it weren't for Olivia, he wouldn't even look at me. But when I got home, I saw Olivia sitting in the living room, waiting for me. "Where were you?" Her voice was calm. For the first time, I lied. "The library." Olivia pointed to the breathalyzer on the side. Suddenly, a wave of anger surged through me. I was angry that she could always predict everything, and even more angry that teenage hormones seemed to have no effect on her. She was always so calm, so mature, as if we weren't twins but sisters 10 years apart. "I didn't drink," I insisted stubbornly, but my voice trembled slightly. Olivia just glanced at me then shrugged. "Whatever." She turned to go up the stairs. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, watching her back disappear onto the second floor. Her indifference hurt me more than any scolding ever could. Over the next few days, Dylan started seeking me out more often. He'd sit next to me during breaks, invite me to eat lunch with him, and even walk me home after school. The way other people looked at me was satisfying, just like how they looked at Olivia. Jealous but pretending not to care. "What does your sister think of me?" he asked about Olivia again. She didn't say anything. I didn't know how to answer. In reality, Olivia acted like she didn't even notice Dylan existed. "What about the gift I asked you to give her?" Dylan frowned. "Did she take it?" I shook my head. Dylan looked a bit confused, but then he smiled. Interesting. After school that day, Dylan insisted on walking me to my front door. As we reached the doorway, Olivia came out, holding a trash bag. It was just a trash bag, but in her hands, it looked like a luxury item. "Hey Olivia," Dylan greeted her, flashing his most charming smile. Olivia gave him a look, nodded, then walked straight to the trash can, showing no intention of stopping to chat. Dylan froze. I could tell he hadn't expected such a cold reception. A strange sense of pride swelled in me. See, even someone like Dylan couldn't faze Olivia. But what happened next made me realize I had completely misunderstood Dylan's reaction. Dylan gazed intently at Olivia, a look in his eyes I'd never seen before. My heart sank. He wasn't giving up after being rejected. He was even more intrigued. From then on, Dylan's strategy completely changed. He started deliberately acting affectionate with me whenever Olivia was around, trying to get her attention. It was an understandable strategy. Olivia only ever seemed to notice him when I was by his side. "Do you think we should make our relationship public?" he asked me one lunchtime, right in front of Olivia. My face flushed, and I stammered. "What relationship?" "Our boyfriend-girlfriend relationship," Dylan said loudly, making sure to look at Olivia, who was eating nearby. But Olivia didn't even lift an eyelid. Dylan's expression stiffened for a moment, but he quickly recovered his smile. "Just kidding," he said to me. A sharp pang went through me. For him, it was just a game, but I had been taking it seriously. That weekend, Dylan invited me to a party. "Bring your sister," he said. "I think she needs to loosen up." I knew Olivia wouldn't go, but I tried inviting her anyway. "No." She refused curtly, not even bothering to give a reason. Why not? I was getting impatient. Every time an invitation failed and I saw Dylan's disappointed look, it made me anxious. I was afraid he'd realize I was useless and leave me. "You're always like this, never participating in anything, never caring about anything. Do you ever think about other people's feelings?" Olivia stopped what she was doing and looked at me. What do other people's feelings have to do with me? Her coldness infuriated me. "Dylan wants to get to know you. He really likes you." "So?" Olivia's tone was infuriatingly calm. "Am I supposed to be happy about that?" "Most girls would be happy." My voice trembled slightly. "I'm not most girls," she said, then went back to her room, leaving me standing alone in the living room. At the party, Dylan kept asking about Olivia. What was she like when she was little? Is there anything she's afraid of? Is there anything that could make her emotional? I answered each question, feeling increasingly miserable inside. I knew what he was thinking. He wanted to find a way to break through Olivia's cool exterior, and I was just his tool. "Maybe I should try something else," Dylan said, taking a sip of beer, his eyes slightly glazed. "Like maybe let her see what it looks like when I'm with you." "What do you mean?" My heart pounded. Dylan looked at me, then suddenly leaned in and kissed me. It was my first kiss, stolen at a noisy party by a boy who was thinking about someone else. When we pulled apart, I saw no tenderness in Dylan's eyes, only a calculating coolness. "Go tell her about this," he said. "See what kind of reaction she has." I felt a wave of nausea. "What do you take me for?" "My girlfriend," Dylan smiled, but the smile felt foreign to me. "Even if it's temporary." I ran out of the party, walking alone on the night street. Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't know if it was from anger or heartbreak. When I got home, Olivia was reading in the living room. She looked up at me, noticing my red, swollen eyes. "What's wrong?" she asked, her tone still flat. "Nothing." I wanted to go straight to my room, but I couldn't help turning back to her. "What would you feel if I told you Dylan kissed me?" Olivia put her book down and looked at me. "Congratulations." "That's it." My voice was almost a scream. You don't care at all? You're not jealous? You're not angry? Do you even have any feelings? Olivia watched me silently for a long time, then said, You want me to be jealous? I want you to react like a normal person. I yelled, breaking down. But why should I react to the actions of a stranger? Olivia's voice remained calm. Whether he kissed you or someone else makes no difference to me. I was utterly desperate. Not because of Dylan's manipulation, but because of Olivia's coldness. I realized that no matter what I did, no matter what happened, I couldn't stir any ripple in her heart. You know what? I sobbed. Sometimes I feel like you're not my sister at all. You're just a stranger living in my house. This time, Olivia's expression finally showed a flicker of change. But it was only for a moment, and then it quickly returned to calm. Stay away from him. I warned you, she said, picking up her book again. The next day, Dylan was waiting for me at school. So, he asked impatiently. What was her reaction? Looking at his expectant face, I suddenly found it ridiculous. Nothing, I said. She said congratulations. Dylan's face fell. No way. She must have reacted somehow. Really, she didn't. I shook my head. She just doesn't care. I could tell Dylan was hit hard. He probably never imagined anyone could be so unaffected by him. So we'll keep dating then, he said, but the confidence was gone from his voice. Maybe after a while she'll. No. I cut him off. I don't want to be your tool anymore. Tool? We're a real couple. Dylan tried to grab my hand. I pulled away. You don't even try when you lie. Watching Dylan's frustrated expression, I suddenly understood something. Maybe Olivia's coldness wasn't a flaw, but a protection. She saw through everyone's fakery and chose not to invest any emotion, except for her concern and care for me. For someone born lacking normal emotional responses, being able to do that was perhaps all the tenderness she could give. Dylan tried to approach me a few more times in the following weeks, but I rejected him each time. He'd still stare at Olivia when she walked by. Perhaps his interest in the cool girl never faded, but I heard he was soon with someone else. Watching all this, I felt a strange sense of relief. One evening, I knocked on Olivia's room door. Come in, she said. I pushed the door open and saw her doing math problems, thick advanced math reference books piled on her desk. Did you know about Dylan? I asked. He's dating another girl now. Olivia didn't look up. Don't you think you should say something like, I told you so? This time she looked up at me, a look in her eyes I couldn't read. Why would I say that? Because you did tell me. You were right all along. Olivia put down her pen and turned to face me. I don't need to prove I was right. Then why did you warn me to stay away from him? I asked. If you truly didn't care about anything? The room was quiet for a long time. Olivia looked at me, her expression reminding me of the focus she had when she taught me math problems when I was little. Because you're my sister, she finally said, her voice as light as a feather. Even though I can't express emotions the way others do, your pain makes me uncomfortable. I care about you more than anyone. I just don't know how to show it. Sometimes I see other sisters hugging, crying, laughing, and I envy how naturally they express their feelings. But I can't do that. Then what are you doing now? I asked. What? You're explaining how you feel, you're comforting me, you're expressing emotion. I smiled. Maybe you're more normal than you think. Olivia also offered a small smile, the gentlest expression I had ever seen on her face. Maybe, she said, but only for you. In that moment, I finally understood. Olivia wasn't without feelings. She just reserved all of them for me. Beneath her seemingly cold exterior was a heart that beat only for me. And I, who had craved the attention of others so much, had overlooked the most precious love right beside me.